President Lee Jae-myung held the second emergency economic task force meeting on Monday, where he ordered his government to swiftly prepare an extra budget to reboot the country's economy and spur private consumption. Also on Monday, President Lee and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba held their first phone talks and agreed to forge what they call mature Seoul-Tokyo relations and handle geopolitical issues under the framework of trilateral cooperation with the U.S. Korean musical Maybe Happy Ending snatched 6 categories at the 78th Tony Awards, the most prestigious award ceremony on Broadway. This is the first time an original musical produced in Korea has won the highest award at the Tony Awards, Best Musical. Good evening. President Lee Jae-myung kicked off his first full week in office by looking at the people's livelihoods and stressing the urgent need for an extra budget to revive the local economy. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min starts us off.
Noting higher prices cause too much pain to the people. This is how President Lee Jae-myung began the second emergency economic task force meeting.
최근에 물가가 엄청나게 많이 올랐다고 그러더라고요. 라면 한 개 2,000원 한다는데 진짜예요?
The president urged his team to seek out measures to tamp down inflation before they meet again next time. Present at Monday's meeting in Yongsan were newly appointed aides, including Chief of Policy Kim Yong-bum and Senior Secretary for Economic Growth Ha Jun-kyung, as well as relevant government officials.
그 생각을 좀 해주시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 우리가 쓰는 1시간은 5,200만 시간의 가치가 있다. 그만큼 영향이 큰 거죠.
The agenda behind closed doors outlined an additional supplementary budget, signaling a shift towards an expansionary fiscal approach at a time when the country is facing a low growth rate for this year, expected to hover around 1%, as well as sluggish demand at home.
The president ordered an extra budget to be organized in a speedy manner to revive the economy and boost consumption. Secondly, he urged for priority to be given to the vulnerable and small business owners for support.
The National Assembly passed a 13.8 trillion won extra budget bill in May, worth some $10 billion, and the second batch is expected to be at least 20 trillion won. Details, including the size of the extra budget, have not been disclosed. The newly inaugurated South Korean leader ordered the launch of the Emergency Economic Task Force as his first executive order as soon as he took office last week. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
President Lee also held his first phone call with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba since taking office. Now, according to the presidential office, the two leaders agreed to work together toward building a strong and stable Korea-Japan relationship. Our Oh Seong has more.
Agreeing on continued cooperation bilaterally and trilaterally with the United States, the leaders of South Korea and Japan held their first phone call since the Lee Jae-myung administration took office last week. According to Seoul's top office, President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba spoke on the phone for around 25 minutes on Monday, marking Lee's second phone call with a foreign leader following his conversation with US President Donald Trump. Given the importance of Korea-Japan relations amid the current strategic environment, the leaders agreed on the need to build a strong and mature bilateral relationship based on a responsible approach. He conveyed his hope that the two neighbours will seek ways to cooperate on future challenges in a mutually beneficial manner, grounded in their respective national interests. The two leaders further agreed to strengthen efforts to respond to various geopolitical challenges through the framework of trilateral cooperation with the United States. When asked by reporters whether historical issues related to Japan's colonization of Korea and its wartime atrocities were raised during the conversation, a presidential official said the leaders' dialogue remained within the bounds of customary diplomatic protocol. Throughout his campaign and since taking office, the president has consistently emphasized a two-track strategy of addressing historical issues based on principles while promoting practical cooperation in economic and security matters. The Japanese PM's office noted that Ishiba expressed his intent to work closely together in responding to North Korea, including the issue of Pyongyang's abductions of Japanese citizens. In light of the 60th anniversary of the normalization of diplomatic relations between the two countries, the two leaders also discussed the importance of enhancing communication between their governments and promoting active people-to-people exchanges. The two leaders plan to meet in person in the future for in-depth discussions on bilateral ties and other issues of mutual interest. Observers believe the face-to-face occasion could come as early as this weekend on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Canada. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung's retrial for alleged election law violation has been postponed indefinitely. The Seoul High Court announced the postponement earlier today, citing the constitutional protection granted to a sitting president. The Article 84 of the Constitution stipulates that the president shall not be subject to criminal prosecution while in office, with the exception of insurrection or treason. In the U.S. now, tensions are higher than ever in L.A., with the deployment of National Guard troops to tame immigration protests. Our Choi Soo-hyung has the details.
Violent clashes continue as cars burn in downtown Los Angeles. Tear gas is fired at the protesters, covering the street with smoke. The protest was sparked when immigration and customs enforcement officers and the FBI raided downtown shops last Friday, detaining around 44 people, mostly Hispanic immigrants.
It is a beautiful day of resistance because Trump, the administration, the Border Patrol, ICE, they know that they cannot go anywhere in this country where our people are and try to kidnap our workers, our people.
On Sunday local time, for a second day, protests erupted in several areas, including Paramount and Santa Barbara, over surprise immigrant arrest.
It's disappointing, it's heartbreaking to know that our community is going through this, but it's also beautiful to see everybody come out together and stand against it, and I think we need to continue doing that.
U.S. President Donald Trump deployed 2,000 National Guard troops. He described protesters as rioters and looters and banned them from wearing masks. It is the first time since 1965 that a U.S. president has deployed a National Guard without a governor's request. And it's also the first time in 33 years that they've been deployed to control protesters, the previous time being the 1992 LA riots. California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom condemned President Trump's decision. No Koreans are known to be among those detained in the recent mass arrests. However, under the Trump administration's tougher immigration policy, there have been individual cases of Korean nationals being arrested and detained in LA. The Consulate General of the Republic of Korea in LA said there have been about 4 to 5 cases involving issues such as missing visa documents. President Trump had pledged during last year's election to deport over 1 million undocumented immigrants every year. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
The Korean musical Maybe Happy Ending took home 6 honors at the 78th Tony Awards. And now this is the first time an original musical that was created and premiered in Korea has won such recognition. Our Park Kwon-woo has more.
And the Tony Award goes to Maybe Happy Ending.
A round of applause and a standing ovation. A truly happy ending for the first Korean musical developed locally to win such a prestigious honor.
We are so honored to receive this award for this magical, melodical, beautiful, heartfelt, humane musical that has been thrilling audiences at the Belasco Theater since last fall.
At the 87 Tony Awards held in New York on Sunday, Maybe Happy Ending took home 6 awards out of 10 nominations, including the coveted Best Musical, Best Book, and Best Performance by an Actor in a Leading Role. It was the most awarded musical of the night, followed by Buena Vista Social Club with 4 wins, and Sunset Boulevard and Stranger Things The First Shadow with 3 each. Co-created by Korean writer Park Chun-hyu and composer Will Aronson, Maybe Happy Ending tells a futuristic story of robot aides discovering love in Korea. The musical premiered in 2016 at a 300-seat theater in Seoul, before making its English version debut last November at the Belasco Theater. Maybe Happy Ending is seen as groundbreaking for being entirely created and first staged in Korea, and it'll continue its open-ended run with no scheduled closing date. On Monday, President Lee Jae-myung also vowed to strengthen support for the arts field, celebrating Sunday's win and expressing hope that more Korean creators can shine on the international stage. And with more and more Korean content winning the hearts of global audiences, expectations are rising for many more happy endings to come. 박건우, Arirang News.
Now, speaking of K-musicals, Korean content is fast evolving and taking on new shapes and forms, most prominently over in Japan. Our An Sung-jin shows us how, with her second series of stories on the 60th anniversary of the normalization of relations between Korea and Japan.
Many recent musicals are based on movies or the life stories of famous people. But this Japanese production crew decided to make a musical from a webtoon. They took the Korean webtoon Itaewon class and brought the 2D characters to life in Japan. The story of young entrepreneurs and their ups and downs has been recreated as a Japanese musical. So here I'm on site where rehearsals for the musical are taking place. The production crew had told us that they focus on the finer details to create a closer replica of the scenes in Korea. The musical will be performed in Tokyo, Osaka, and Aichi throughout June and July. In the planning stage of the musical, because it was compressing a long webtoon series into a 2 or 3 hour long musical, the program director said she focused on the music, art, and visual aspects.
Because Itaewon class is a good piece and most of the characters are charming, I worked on showing the originality on stage without necessarily changing it from the webtoon.
Actors in the musical, some who were already fans of Korean content, immersed themselves in the story too.
With the original webtoon being such a renowned hit across the world, I was honored to take part in the musical version of it.
Not only are remakes of original Korean content gaining popularity, but more and more Korean-Japanese collaborations are showing up on the screen. Producer Nakajima Keisuke created the drama I Love You, which tells the love story of a Japanese woman and a Korean man. He said that there were several Korean staff on the production team to bring as much reality to the drama as possible.
Even though it was an endeavor, the collaboration can add a new element to the drama, enhancing the fun and touching aspects of the script. It's weird to think that there aren't as many stories like these, but it's great to see that more and more Korean and Japanese actors are playing a role in each other's dramas.
As Nakajima said, it's becoming more common to see Japanese actors in Korean content as well. Just like Nojima Naoto, who started in Seoul as a musical actor. The Japanese actor took a role in the musical and movie Hero, which delineates the story of An Jung-geun, who fought against Japan for Korean independence. For Nojima, this movie was a chance to better understand the history between the two countries.
I thought an important part was knowing the characters not only through the lines, but also by studying more of the past. I went to the library to really understand the history, which not only made me realize I had parts I wanted to apologize for as a Japanese person, but it was also a chance to look back at myself.
As such, Korean content is acting as a bridge between Korea and Japan. Over time, not only will this type of content become more prevalent, but it will captivate a wider audience. An Sung-jin, Arirang News, Tokyo.
Staying on the culture front, June is known as a month of patriots and veterans in South Korea. And a new opera sheds a light on an act of wartime heroism. Our Park Hyo-bin has this story.
When history weeps, art remembers. Last Friday, in time for Memorial Day on June 6th, a new opera brought to life one of the most extraordinary humanitarian rescues ever recorded. Meredith, South Korea's first cinematic opera, tells the story of the SS Meredith Victory, a U.S. cargo ship that saved more than 14,000 Korean refugees during the Hungnam evacuation in December 1950.
They must have felt such despair, not knowing what would happen to them.
I imagined it like escaping a burning building or clinging to a sinking ship.
Designed to carry just 60 people, the ship took aboard desperate civilians fleeing war, leaving behind weapons and supplies to make room for more lives. There were no casualties, and remarkably, 5 babies were born during the 3-day journey that ended on Christmas Day. The operation was later recognized by Guinness World Records as the largest evacuation by a single ship.
While saving lives seems like the obvious choice, the captain would have faced fears of disobeying orders and facing consequences. The fact that he put all that aside to help strangers from another country is incredibly brave.
But Meredith is no conventional opera. Blending cinematic elements with classical opera, it offered a distinctive experience that set it apart from traditional productions.
We thought about how to capture the fear and the will to survive. That's why we used a lot of cinematic techniques and videos. It became what we call a cinematic opera.
As Korea marks Memorial Month in June, Meredith offers more than a retelling of history.
Without history, we have no present. It's only through understanding our past that we can compare, reflect, and move forward.
I hope Meredith helps audiences not only reflect on the tragedy of war, but also feel the power of humanity and community, and that it inspires a warmer society.
In the coldest chapters of our past, it was courage and compassion that led the way. And in remembering, we find not just sorrow, but the strength to hope again. 박효빈, Arirang News.
Korean temple food was originally listed as a national intangible heritage last month, and the good old Korean Temple Food Festival took place this past weekend to celebrate that designation. The festival, in fact, returned after a decade, hopeful for a future UNESCO listing. Our Park Jun-an was there.
From traditional steamed tofu to yuzu-flavored sweet rice and shiitake mushroom stew, these foods are not just tasty vegetarian dishes, they also embody core Buddhist values. Temple food, known for creating mental and physical energy during training, respects life and avoids the use of the 5 pungent vegetables, namely onions, garlic, chives, green onions, and leeks, which are believed to hinder spiritual clarity and inner peace.
I'm currently at the Korean Temple Food Festival. Come along as I dive into unique flavors and the timeless value of the temple food.
People from assorted backgrounds and a variety of countries gather here in Seoul to celebrate and experience the excellence of temple food. They sampled dishes and even tried making some themselves. Some 20,000 people took part in the event, over 2 days from Saturday to Sunday, with the majority of attendees in their 20s and 30s. With its health-forward approach and mild flavors, temple food has become a popular alternative for those avoiding strong flavors.
There's a recent trend like the slow aging diet and low sodium diet. People these days want to live a healthy life, so I think these are the parts of what makes temple food so appealing.
Of course, temple food is not just healthy, it is tasty and flavorful.
Well, I was actually surprised because I've never tried temple food before. So I thought it would be very bland, but it actually was very flavorful.
Now that Korean temple food gained recognition as a national intangible cultural heritage in May, efforts are underway to expand its reach globally.
Korean temple food, now recognized as a national intangible cultural heritage, is ready to inspire people around the world with its universal appeal, transcending religious boundaries, which is why we are actively promoting it overseas.
Aiming for UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage recognition, the Jogye Order of Korean Buddhism is strengthening its global presence through cultural exchanges, temple stay programs, and academic initiatives, while championing core Buddhist values. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Joining us in the studio is our sports editor, Paul Neitz. Good evening, Paul.
Hello there.
So why don't we start with the South Korean national football team. The Taeguk Warriors have obviously qualified for the 2026 World Cup.
Yes, it's the 11th World Cup in a row for
Wow.
South Korea, an achievement that was met with a letter to the KFA from FIFA President Gianni Infantino offering his congratulations. Qualification was sealed via a 2-0 away win over Iraq on Thursday. The task at hand now, with one more game to go, is to go unbeaten throughout World Cup qualification for the first time in 16 years. The team's record stands at 10 wins and 5 draws. Korea play against Kuwait in Seoul on Tuesday to see out the third round of qualifying. One more win would also seal top spot in Group B. But there is more to come. In July, South Korea is hosting the EAFF E1 Football Championship. Then the September international break sees friendlies against the USA and Mexico in the US. More friendlies will come in October and November. Then the World Cup draw is made in December. The World Cup in the US, Canada and Mexico kicks off on the 11th of June 2026.
Lots of exciting games to keep us entertained. Paul, let's move on to badminton. Yet another win for An Se-young, right?
Yes, indeed. This time the Indonesian Open, her 5th title of the year, was won on Sunday in Jakarta. An Se-young came from behind to beat Wang Zhiyi of China 2-1. Wang won the first match 21-13, but An roared back with wins in the last two, 21-19, 21-15. The world number one has now won 5 of the 6 competitions she's entered this year, missing only the Singapore Open after losing in the quarterfinals.
You know, Paul, we have to talk about another win for high jumper Woo Sang-hyuk over the weekend.
That's right, yes, he won the Diamond League event in Rome. Now, this is the 6th international victory in a row for the man that they call Smile Jumper. In the final on Sunday, Woo beat Ole Doroshuk of Ukraine, who failed in his attempt to clear the 2.3-meter bar, but Doroshuk was successful. Woo cleared the 2.32 bar, but his rival failed with the 2.4 to seal the win for Woo Sang-hyuk. 2.3 meters was also the best of the season for him.
You know, last but not least, on to baseball. Another milestone match for Kim Hae-sung.
That's right, yes. He recorded his first 3-base hit in Major League Baseball. Kim batted 1 for 2 in a 7-3 win for the LA Dodgers over the St. Louis Cardinals on Sunday. The hit led to 2 runs being scored and allowed him to make it to third base. Kim sent a line drive to the deep right field corner to give the Dodgers a 3-0 lead at the time. He also made something of a spectacular catch in center field in what was an all-round productive day. The 26-year-old joined the Dodgers this year from the Kiwoom Heroes in the KBO League.
All right, thanks, Paul. I'll see you back here next Monday.
Thank you, yeah.
The weather is scorching hot today as well. The daytime temperature moved up to around 30 degrees Celsius across the country. Seoul felt as hot as 30 degrees, Daejeon and Jeonju 31, Gumi 32 degrees today. It feels even hotter than the actual readings due to the high humidity. This hot weather is expected to continue throughout this week. With strong sunshine, the ultraviolet index also stays strong from the morning. Then it soars up to very high levels all over the country in the afternoon. In particular, Jindo in Jeollanam-do province, where UV rays are as high as dangerous levels between noon and 3 in the afternoon. Tomorrow morning will start warm nationwide at around 18 to 20 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 28 degrees in Seoul, 33 degrees in Daegu and Gyeongju. Rain is forecast for the time being on Jeju Island starting from tomorrow. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. For all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.